Howdy Groovers, we're just going to do a little section here called Retracing Footsteps. What I'm going to be doing is talking about or retracing some old stories from back in the day that really capture what sambar hunting is all about. So today we've got a little story here from 1990 from the one and only Ray Rollandin. And I was just reading this one and I thought that really captures what sambar hunting is all about. Reg had finally done it. After 6 years of hard hunting with me, he had just shot a stag carrying a lovely, wide 27-inch head. As we boiled out the camp billy for another cuppa, it was great to see the gleam in his eye. But not so good to hear the remarks like, "The pressure is on you now, boy, to perform." Next morning we woke to a fine sunny day. After having breakfast and clearing up camp, Reg was going to walk out to the vehicle with his cape and a pack full of meat. By doing so, he had left me the valley to myself. So I headed off to a big river flat about 1 kilometre downstream, where I'd found deer sign previously. It was 10:30 by the time I got there. On reaching the big flat, I dropped down by a spur and was pleased to find a big set of marks heading the same way, but maybe a week old. The flat was thick with grass, making tracking hard, but the strong smell of stag hung about close to the ground. What do? I wondered. By this time it was 1 o'clock, time for lunch. After eating, I headed off the flat, straight along the spur, and dropped into a long gully that wound its way out of sight into the mountain range. As I walked the gully cautiously, a slight breeze blew from behind, sending my scent straight ahead. As deer sign was plentiful, but old, I decided to go higher up the gully side to keep my scent from working against me. As on previous occasions when following old sign, I have looked up to see the animal's rear end slightly disappearing. I looked down at my watch disappointedly. 3 hours had passed since lunch, and now I was very high above the valley, but on old sign. With only 2 hours before dark, I decided to pull out of that gully and head back to camp. On reaching a spur into the next gully system, I sat down for a breather and a look. After about 10 minutes, a movement caught my eye in a thick patch of scrub below me. A look through the scope revealed a bulky shape of a big hind. Then another movement to her left, a calf. But what's this? An antler waving above the bush. My heart was thumping hard. Just below me, no more than 75 metres away, were 3 sambar browsing, oblivious to my presence. My scope centred on the bush, but showed nothing through the heavy cover, for the deer were now browsing away from me. I crept down slowly. For once the breeze was blowing into my face. Arriving at the spot where they had been, there was no sight of the deer, but the strong smell of a rutting stag filled my nostrils. Moving down, I was sure they did not know someone was onto them. But where were they? Then suddenly I saw a stag, looking straight at me. I froze. He was no more than 40 metres away, ears spread forward and mane splayed out. It was an inspiring sight. Despite his small antlers of about 12 inches, nervously he looked above, then back at me, and then quietly slipped off the spur and out of sight. Well, I was rapt. What an experience I had just had. You don't have to fire a shot to have a great trip. As I walked back to camp, I was in deep thought about the past half hour. Maybe this is why I did not immediately see the big black shape of a stag browsing no more than 30 metres above me. But as he slowly swung his head around and saw me, his tail swung up in alarm, but it was too late. I'd finally seen him, shouldered the 270 and sent a 130 grain spear projectile on its way. As it struck, he took off at a gallop as if unhit, straight down past me. My rifle swung with him and fired again as he disappeared through the scrub. I bolted down after the stag but did not have to track him. After about 130 metres I found him where he had nosedived after running out of steam from a lung shot. I let go a shout of excitement. Speculation filled my mind. This stag had been about 180 metres from the first 3, probably the dominant stag of the group. which felt safe while browsing, expecting the other deer to warn him of danger from above and the breeze to signal danger from below. But I slipped past the first three without provoking a warning shot. Checking his antler length with my belt, found he went about 25 inches on both sides. Not a massive head, but that does not matter to me. It's funny looking back to when I first started hunting 10 years ago. No one would give me any information on how to hunt these deer, and it was a slow learning process. That's why it took me 3 years to shoot my first deer, a hind. But by then the spell of the sambar had already been cast. I arrived back at camp just after dark. Reg was exhausted from his own long trek back to the vehicle, but heard the shots and was anxious to hear what had happened. We agreed that the past 3 days would surely never repeat themselves in our hunting lifetime. A trip when we both shot sambar stags. Just amazing stuff. I'd like to thank Ray Rolladin for writing that article, and for our good man Reggie for being there, just being a good bloke. So that's my first instalment of Retracing the Footsteps of Keen Sambarmen. Hope you join me on a few more stories, and we'll see where this one goes. I'm out of here. Hooroo.